Daniel stood before the angel, his heart burning with questions. He had received visions of wars, kingdoms falling, and a time when knowledge would spread like never before. But instead of an explanation, he heard an unexpected command. Close the book and seal it until the time of the end. Daniel 12:4. It was as if heaven itself was saying, the time is not yet. And for centuries, this prophecy remained a riddle, sealed, protected, waiting for the exact moment to be opened. The seal wasn't just a physical object, it was a spiritual blockade, a divine code that could only be broken when humanity reached a specific point in its history. And the detail that has always intrigued scholars. The prophecy said that when the seal was opened, knowledge would multiply. But what did this really mean? Was it just more books, more schools, or something Daniel could never have imagined? Imagine Daniel, living in the 6th century BC, accustomed to messages delivered by messengers on horseback, to words engraved on clay tablets or fragile parchments. Now project this prophetic mind into our time. Billions of messages traversing the planet in seconds, images and ideas crossing borderless continents, entire libraries in every person's pocket. Wouldn't this be the multiplication of knowledge in its most extreme form? And yet there's something deeper here. The Hebrew word used in Daniel 12:4 for multiply carries the idea of an explosion, an exponential growth. This isn't linear, it's a leap, like what we experienced with the arrival of the internet. It's as if the seal had been broken, not with a trumpet blast, but with the silent click of a global connection. And few realize that this shift carries immense spiritual weight. Today, we live in a world that Daniel couldn't describe with the words of his time. But if he were here, he might have said, the time of the end began when the seal was broken, and that seal wasn't opened in a temple or by a priest, but by the invisible network that connects every screen, every mind, and every heart. And this is where the prophecy of 2 millennia ago directly touches our generation. Because if the book has been opened, what comes next will no longer be hidden. Before continuing, click subscribe now, activate the bell, and let each new revelation reach you firsthand. We're entering a crucial part of this journey, and missing any detail could mean being left in the dark about what's already happening before your eyes. When Daniel heard that knowledge would increase, he couldn't have imagined the scale of this prophecy. In his time, carrying a message from one city to another could take weeks. Today, a thought crosses the planet in less than a second. The largest libraries in history are condensed into digital clouds. Thousands of years of research, records, maps, images, and texts, all at the touch of a button. But there's a detail few realize. Daniel didn't just talk about the quantity of knowledge, he talked about its speed and intensity. Multiplication, in its original sense, implies growth beyond human control. And that's exactly what we see with today's technology. Artificial intelligence learning on its own, systems expanding beyond human oversight, data doubling every few years. This, in itself, is impressive. But the spiritual issue is deeper. When all knowledge is accessible, so is all deception. Just as light multiplies, shadow multiplies along with it. The internet is not neutral. It is an invisible battlefield where truth and lies run side by side, competing for people's hearts and minds. And this is where Daniel's prophecy takes on new weight. The increase in knowledge is not just a sign of the end times, it is the perfect environment for fulfilling other prophecies. If the sealed words have been opened, it is not just so that we may know more, but so that we may be tested more intensely. Each click can be a step toward wisdom or perdition. What Daniel saw was a time when the flow of information would be so intense that it would become impossible to separate it with human senses. It's not just the multiplication of knowledge, it's the multiplication of confusion. The internet connects us to millions of voices, but not all of them speak the truth. In fact, many speak to distort, distract, and mislead. And here's the crucial point. When everything seems to carry the same weight and credibility, lies gain the same platform as the truth. This is the terrain where prophecy is fulfilled, not only by the sheer volume of data, but by the chaos it creates. Daniel didn't see screens, but he saw global deceptions. He didn't see social media, but he saw masses guided by invisible narratives. Today, algorithms shape our perception of the world without us even realizing it. Every search, every click, every second we spend in front of a screen feeds a system that decides what we'll see next. And when this happens, the multiplication of knowledge also becomes the multiplication of manipulation. The enemy has always known that information shapes reality. Now they have the tools to do so on a planetary scale. The danger lies not only in false content, but in the speed at which it spreads. Previously, a lie could take months to cross borders. Now, it can cross continents in less than a minute. This accelerated pace fulfills the prophetic scenario, a world where people have no time to confirm before believing, and where the pressure to follow the popular truth is overwhelming. The pressure is not physical, but psychological and spiritual, shaping consciences and values almost imperceptibly. And here we enter the spiritual heart of this revelation. Discernment is more valuable than information. Daniel received complex visions, but he understood that understanding would not come from accumulated data, but from divine revelation. It is this revelation that the modern world lacks. We can know everything about any subject, but without spiritual discernment, we will remain blind. And in this state, knowledge becomes just another tool to distance us from eternal truth. If we look at history, we'll see that every time humanity has had access to a leap in information, there has also been a wave of deception. But now is different. We're not just at the beginning of a new phase, we're at the final phase. The speed, reach, and intensity of this digital age make it the perfect setting for the manifestation of the greatest prophetic lies ever predicted. And if Daniel were here, he might repeat, "Guard your heart above all else, for it is there that truth or lies will rule you." When we read Daniel's words, we cannot ignore the symbolism of opening and closing revelations. Throughout the Bible, doors and gates represent spiritual transitions, access points between realms, and decisive moments in history. In our time, the internet has become the largest set of doors ever created by humanity. Every click, every login, every entry into a network is, spiritually speaking, passing through a portal. And these portals do not all lead to the same destination. Some lead to light, others to the deepest darkness. This image of doors connects what Daniel saw with other prophetic moments. In previous episodes of this marathon, we talked about sealed gates, about entrances awaiting the Messiah, about the Tower of Babel. Today, we are witnessing the construction of a new, invisible tower made of data and digital connections. It's a tower without bricks, but with a reach that spans the entire planet. And, like Babel, it is an attempt to centralize power, language, and knowledge without relying on the Creator. If the internet is a set of these doors, who decides which ones are open and which are closed? In the physical world, doors are controlled by keys. In the digital world, they are controlled by codes. But what few realize is that controlling access to information is, in practice, controlling the collective consciousness. Whoever controls the doors controls the narrative, and whoever controls the narrative shapes the future. It's not just technology, it's a spiritual battle disguised as innovation. This is where Daniel's prophecy and our present meet. The end times would not only be marked by an abundance of information, but also by the control of who can access it. The seal wasn't just lifted, it was replaced by filters, algorithms, and invisible barriers that decide what you see and what you never see. The danger lies not only in what enters, but in what is prevented from entering. Doors that could lead to eternal truth are closed without the person even realizing it. So if you're following this journey, don't let the doors of truth be closed to you. Sign up now and activate the bell, because there are things that need to be said that the system doesn't want you to hear. We're only halfway through this revelation, and in the next section, we'll explore how this global network not only connects, but sets the stage for something much bigger and more dangerous than we imagine. The internet's greatest illusion is that it appears free. Anyone can create content, anyone can search, anyone can express themselves. But behind this veneer of freedom lies an invisible web of control. This network isn't just technical, it's spiritual. It connects people, but it also connects ideologies, addictions, and deceptions. Daniel saw a time when many would run from one place to another, and not just physically, but digitally. Today, we run with our fingers, travel with our eyes, navigate without leaving our place. However, this constant race is not neutral. With every click, we leave traces. And these traces feed a system that knows us better than we know ourselves. It knows what we desire, what we fear, and even what we are about to decide. Never in all of history has control over the human mind been so silent and so precise. This network is the perfect preparation for manipulation on a global scale, something the ancient prophets described in ways we can only now fully understand. When Daniel heard that knowledge would multiply, he didn't know that surveillance would also multiply. Not only would we see everything, we would be watched all the time. Our habits, conversations, routines, everything recorded, stored, analyzed. The network that connects also imprisons. And for those who control this network, there's no need for iron chains. A constant flow of shaped information is enough to keep the masses under control. The most disturbing thing is that most people don't feel the weight of these chains. On the contrary, they find it comfortable. The personalization, the convenience, the quick responses, all of this creates a false sense of autonomy. But spiritually, it's like living in a gilded prison. Daniel didn't see cell phones, but he saw what they would do to the hearts and minds of those who carry them. And this vision was so urgent that heaven decreed it would be sealed until the right time. And that moment is now. If what Daniel saw is coming to pass, then we're not just using the network, we're inside it. And those who understand this understand that the next step won't just be more information, it will be the imposition of a single narrative. And in the next section, we'll uncover how this is already happening and what's yet to come. What makes Daniel's prophecy even more impressive is that it speaks not only about access to knowledge, but also about its selectivity. We live in an age where information doesn't just flow, it's filtered. It's not the raw truth that reaches us, but a version shaped, selected, and presented according to interests we rarely know. This filter is the modern seal, not a physical seal, but an invisible barrier deciding what can and cannot be seen. Algorithms, artificial intelligence, recommendation systems, all of these act as guardians of these digital gates. And just as in ancient times, what is guarded isn't always for our own good. The difference is that now, these guardians don't wield swords but codes, and these codes can shape opinions, erase history, and even rewrite facts before our very eyes. Daniel didn't see computers, but he saw a power that could influence multitudes without them even realizing it. The most dangerous thing is that this filtering disguises itself as help. The system claims to be protecting us from false or dangerous information. But often, what it really does is protect certain narratives and eliminate others. Anything that doesn't fit the acceptable standard simply disappears. And thus, an ancient prophecy is fulfilled before us. The truth is not forcefully denied, but diluted amidst half-truths. This invisible filter is proof that we're not just dealing with technology, we're dealing with a war for the human mind. The battle isn't about who has the most data, but about who decides what data reaches you. Daniel saw a time when visions would be sealed until the end, and now we see that, even with access to everything, there are spiritual truths that remain hidden to those who don't seek beyond the surface. And here we come to a crucial revelation. The filter not only limits what we see, but also what we believe is possible. It shapes expectations, limits horizons, and prepares hearts to accept lies as truth. And in the next section, we'll see how this scenario connects to something even grander and more frightening than Daniel had already foreseen. Daniel saw a time when many would run to and fro and knowledge would multiply. But in the digital world, this race isn't just about seeking information, it's about forging a single voice. Different platforms, different cultures, and even different languages are beginning to align around the same global narratives. What was once plurality is now moving toward uniformity. And spiritually, we know that uniformity without the spirit is fertile ground for deception. The internet, with all its promise of diversity, has created an ecosystem where a few control what many hear. These united voices are not the result of spontaneous consensus, but of aligned interests, agendas, and often manipulation. The danger lies not only in what is said, but in what is repeated incessantly until it is accepted as absolute truth. This is how the modern tower is built, not of stone, but of ideas repeated until they become indisputable. On a spiritual level, this echoes the original Babel. There, God confused the languages to prevent humanity from advancing in a project that would lead to rebellious self-sufficiency. Today, we experience the opposite. Languages and cultures are being artificially unconfused by translation technologies, instant messaging, and global social networks. The goal? To create a people of one language again, not for good, but for a unified purpose that excludes the creator. This forced union of voices also means the exclusion of dissenting voices. And make no mistake, in the new digital tower, there is no room for stones that don't fit together. Prophetic voices, messages calling for repentance, spiritual warnings, all are considered dangerous speech or irrelevant information. What Daniel saw is being fulfilled before our eyes, the construction of a system where eternal truth is marginalized so that lies can thrive. And when all voices sound the same, the silence becomes almost imperceptible. This is the ultimate trap, making the absence of truth seem like just another opinion that disappeared into the sea of information. But in the next section, we'll see how this union of voices sets the stage for something even more profound. A global movement that Daniel described so accurately that it seems to speak directly to our time. Daniel saw a time when many would run to and fro and knowledge would multiply. But in the digital world, this race isn't just about seeking information, it's about forging a single voice. Different platforms, different cultures, and even different languages are beginning to align around the same global narratives. What was once plurality is now moving toward uniformity. And spiritually, we know that uniformity without the spirit is fertile ground for deception. The internet, with all its promise of diversity, has created an ecosystem where a few control what many hear. These united voices are not the result of spontaneous consensus, but of aligned interests, agendas, and often manipulation. The danger lies not only in what is said, but in what is repeated incessantly until it is accepted as absolute truth. This is how the modern tower is built, not of stone, but of ideas repeated until they become indisputable. On a spiritual level, this echoes the original Babel. There, God confused the languages to prevent humanity from advancing in a project that would lead to rebellious self-sufficiency. Today, we experience the opposite. Languages and cultures are being artificially unconfused by translation technologies, instant messaging, and global social networks. The goal? To create a people of one language again, not for good, but for a unified purpose that excludes the creator. This forced union of voices also means the exclusion of dissenting voices. And make no mistake, in the new digital tower, there is no room for stones that don't fit together. Prophetic voices, messages calling for repentance, spiritual warnings, all are considered dangerous speech or irrelevant information. What Daniel saw is being fulfilled before our eyes. The construction of a system where eternal truth is marginalized so that lies can thrive. And when all voices sound the same, the silence becomes almost imperceptible. This is the ultimate trap, making the absence of truth seem like just another opinion that disappeared into the sea of information. But in the next section, we'll see how this union of voices sets the stage for something even more profound. A global movement that Daniel described so accurately that it seems to speak directly to our time. Imagine a stage so large that everyone on the planet can see it at the same time. Daniel didn't use the word internet, but he described a scenario where messages, signals, and events would reach everyone instantly. This world platform already exists. It's the set of networks, broadcasts, and global communication systems that connect billions of people in real time. It's here that ideologies are launched, narratives are shaped, and consensus is forged. In the past, delivering a message to the ends of the earth took years, even centuries. Today, a click is all it takes. But this advancement did not come without a cost. The greater the reach, the greater the power to shape minds and hearts on a massive scale. It's no coincidence that Daniel spoke of an increase in knowledge accompanied by unprecedented tribulations. Knowledge multiplied, but so did the ability to manipulate it. The world platform is not just a neutral space. It is often the pulpit of a new global religion, the worship of technology and humanity as the center of all things. On this digital altar, the creator is replaced by algorithms, and eternal truth is exchanged for temporary truths that shift with trends. Daniel saw something like this, a system that would influence multitudes, paving the way for a unified government and faith, but far removed from the Almighty. What we see now is just the beginning. This global infrastructure is ready to amplify any message, whether it's to save or to deceive. And when the time is right, it will be used like never before. Scripture speaks of signs that every eye will see, and for the first time in history, technology makes this literally possible. The stage is set. The lights are on. All that's left is the final act. And in the next section, we'll get into the most disturbing detail, how Daniel's vision of sealing until the time of the end may indicate that certain revelations would only be understood by a specific generation, and how that generation may very well be ours. When Daniel received his visions, he tried to understand everything, but the order was clear. Go, Daniel, for the words are closed and sealed until the time of the end. This expression is not just poetic, it is strategic. It means that certain spiritual truths could not be understood until the scenario was complete. And this scenario includes elements that only our generation has seen: the internet, artificial intelligence, instant global networks. For centuries, scholars tried to decipher what Daniel saw, but they lacked the correct pieces. It was like looking at a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Today, however, those pieces are falling into place. The descriptions of multiplying knowledge multitudes rushing to and fro, and the rise of global systems. All of this now makes literal sense. We are perhaps at the time when the seal begins to open. What's most striking is realizing that the sealing may also have been a protection. God knew that if certain information were understood too soon, it could be used for the wrong purposes. Now, however, the revelation comes at the very moment humanity is about to cross dangerous lines. Lines involving identity, freedom, and the very definition of what it means to be human. And here comes the most alarming spiritual factor. Revelation is not for everyone. Even living in the end times, many will not have eyes to see. Daniel saw that the wicked would not understand, but the wise will understand. This means that this message is not just a prophetic study, it is a call to those who have ears to hear and the courage to act. In the next topic, we'll connect all of this to what will be the bridge to our next episode, the connection between Daniel's vision and a prophecy about communication networks, knowledge, and deception that fits perfectly with what we're experiencing today. Something that will prepare you for an even more specific revelation. Daniel and the prophetic prediction of the internet. We've reached the end of this marathon. But spiritually, perhaps this is just the beginning. Daniel heard that his words were sealed until the time of the end, and for centuries this phrase remained an enigma. Now, we live in the only era in which human knowledge has multiplied at an unprecedented rate, where technologies interconnect the planet in seconds, and where prophecies that seemed symbolic sound strangely literal. This is no coincidence. It's the seal opening before our eyes. Looking back, we see how each episode of this season built a prophetic mosaic. The gate closed for 1,000 years. The hidden codes of the Zohar about machines imitating man. The mystery of the temple descending from heaven. The red heifer and its call for purification, the new Babel within each of us, and the vision of machine angels returning to watch over and influence human destiny. It all converged here for Daniel, the prophet who saw what he could not even fully comprehend. Now we understand. Sealing isn't about hiding forever, but about preserving until the right generation is ready or vulnerable to receive. That generation is ours, the same one that carries a device that can access any knowledge, but also lives under the filter of systems that decide what you see and what you ignore. Wisdom has multiplied, but so has deception. And this is the final battlefield. Responsibility, then, is personal and non-transferable. The seal is breaking, and the light it releases can reveal or blind. Each revelation of this marathon was not just a historical fact or a theological curiosity. It was a call to vigilance, holiness, and discernment. We are facing a silent war, where the weapon is truth and the target is your soul. And here I close with an invitation, not just to reflect, but to dive deeper. All episodes of this marathon Season 1, Hidden Codes for the Last Days, are gathered in this playlist, ready for you to watch in sequence and see the complete prophetic picture God is revealing. Start with the first one. Review each revelation and see how all the pieces fit together. Subscribe to the channel now, activate the bell, and join us so you don't miss any of the secrets yet to be revealed. The seal is opening, and you need to be awake for what comes next.